My name is Emily Carter. I'm 34, and I never thought I'd come home and feel like a guest in my own house. I had just cut short a trip to Vancouver. I returned to my house and found nearly 90 people dancing, drinking, and laughing. My mom, Susan, was in the kitchen, barking orders at caterers like she owned the place. My younger brother, Ethan, was playing mixologist behind my grandfather's antique bar. A full-blown family reunion, one I hadn't even been invited to. And all of it happening inside the house my grandfather left to me. If you've ever walked into a surprise party you didn't know was for everyone but you. Yeah, it felt like that. I wasn't born into privilege. I built my life from the ground up. While my college classmates were out partying, I was drafting proposals and running financial models in my tiny dorm room, barely lit and barely warm. Those nights led me to a junior analyst job at a mid-tier investment firm, tucked into a windowless corner office so cramped I could touch both walls without standing up. I worked 80-hour weeks for years, surviving on cold brew and drive-through meals. When others panicked over deadlines, I dug in. I didn't complain, I delivered. All that hard work eventually paid off. By the time I turned 30, I was managing my own investment portfolio team. At 32, I made partner at Strat Capital, one of the fastest promotions in the firm's history. But the person who believed in me, before anyone else ever did, was my grandfather, Henry. He was a civil engineer, the kind who still carried a pencil behind his ear and built things you could actually touch. Bridges, roads, foundations. He respected discipline and detail. When I was 12, he gave me my first stock analysis book, while my mom scoffed, saying, "She should be out riding bikes, not reading balance sheets." But Grandpa just smiled and whispered, "Some build with bricks, others with numbers. Both leave a legacy." Through all of high school, I spent every Sunday at his big, creaky Victorian, 3 generations old and still solid as ever. While my mom and Ethan rarely showed up, I'd sit cross-legged in his study, listening to stories about design principles, balance, whether it was in bridges or in life. "A Carter never takes shortcuts," he'd remind me, tapping the flawless corner joint on his handmade desk. "Even the hidden parts deserve your best work. That's how you know someone can be trusted." Ethan, my younger brother by 3 years, was charm in human form. He could walk into a room and people just gave him things. While I earned every win, Ethan expected them handed to him. He cycled through 4 different college majors, dropping each like a seasonal hobby, and every time he'd convince our mom that this time was the one. She'd pull from her modest pension to fund his next dream, stretching herself to the limit, believing he'd figure it out eventually. 2 years ago, when Grandpa passed, his will surprised everyone, except me. The Victorian, now sitting on prime Boston real estate worth nearly $2 million, was left entirely to me. His note read simply, "To Emily, who understands what it means to build something that lasts." My mother was furious. "He must have been confused," she said. "That house belongs to all of us." She expected me to hand it over, or sell it and divide the cash evenly. But I couldn't. Not after everything it meant to me. That house wasn't just lumber and drywall. It was every Sunday lesson, every proud nod when I brought home a win, every quiet page I turned in his library. I moved in right away, pouring time and care into restoring each room, keeping its soul intact. I turned the library into my home office, but left his shelves untouched. In the backyard, I brought back the rose garden he'd designed by hand, right down to the heirloom varieties he'd documented in a battered old notebook. Even with the tension, I tried to keep the peace. I invited them for holidays. They came, but always like guests, never like family. When Ethan pitched his latest idea, some artisanal food truck concept, I offered to help him build a plan, not bankroll it. He passed. I even helped my mom cover her mortgage, but she treated it like I was sending debt collectors, not helping her stay afloat. That Vancouver trip had been a major milestone for me, our biggest potential client yet. My firm had been chasing Rothwell Global, one of Europe's most private banking groups, for years. As the new director of strategic partnerships, this deal wasn't just important, it was career-defining. After 2 weeks of non-stop meetings in Frankfurt, late-night calls, and last-minute pivots, I finally closed a multi-year contract worth millions. It was the biggest win of my career. My team planned to celebrate big in Frankfurt, fancy dinners, rooftop bars, the works. But I just wanted quiet. I missed home. I dreamed of my backyard, a glass of red wine, and maybe even silence for once. That was my version of celebrating. So I changed my flight. Left early, didn't tell anyone. It felt like a reward to myself. A private little victory lap no one else needed to know about. On the plane, I found myself scrolling through old pictures of my garden. My tulips were probably in full bloom by now, arranged in a winding pattern that spelled "keep going." A nod to my grandfather's favorite saying. I couldn't wait to see them from the upstairs window, just like he used to. And I remembered the Cabernet I'd been saving for something meaningful. Well, if this didn't qualify, nothing would. As the Uber pulled onto my street, I felt that cozy, welcome home warmth, until it evaporated. Cars, everywhere. The entire block looked like a music festival. Cars on the curb, my lawn, even across my driveway. The bass from some party anthem pounded from inside the house. The driver stopped a block away. "Someone's throwing a bash," the driver joked, lifting my suitcase out. I didn't laugh. I stood there, frozen. My windows were glowing. People moving, drinks in hand. Loud laughter spilling out into the yard. Strangers were clustered all over my garden. My tulip bed, trampled. Cigarette butts on the grass like confetti. It looked like my house had been hijacked. I grabbed my bag and walked the path I'd walked 100 times. But this time, with dread building in my chest. Every step toward the porch made my stomach drop. My garden, my safe haven, was wrecked. Tulips smashed, ash everywhere. My hand-carved chairs shoved into a smoking circle, now marked with beer rings. By the koi pond, some middle-aged guy I didn't know was tossing coins in like it was a fountain. I almost shouted, "Copper kills fish," but I was too stunned to make a sound. Kids were running wild, one of them nearly toppling the stone lantern my grandfather had brought back from Kyoto in the 70s. Nobody even looked at me. To them, I was just another guest, another stranger, in my own home. The front door was wedged open with one of my sunroom plants. I stepped inside, and the smell hit me like a wave. Spilled booze, too much perfume, stale food. The noise was worse. Music blaring from my speakers, kids screaming upstairs, dozens of overlapping conversations. My sanctuary had become a circus. The air inside was thick, uncomfortably warm from way too many bodies packed into a space meant for half that number. My foyer, usually minimal and serene with just a vintage console table and a mirror, now looked like a department store exploded. Coats, bags, and gift totes piled everywhere. Hanging across the living room entry was a huge banner. Carter Family Reunion, 2025, Generations United. Someone had even set up a folding table with printed name tags and a floral guest book, like this was some well-planned wedding. I wandered through the chaos in a fog, recognizing a few faces I hadn't seen since I was a teenager, and plenty more I couldn't place at all. It felt like walking through someone else's memories. Great Aunt Mabel, who I was pretty sure still lived in Arizona, was parked comfortably in my reading nook, gossiping with a handful of elderly women like it was her personal parlor. A few cousins I barely remembered from childhood were camped out at my dining room table, now doubled in size thanks to a row of rental tables, grazing on what looked like a full catered buffet. Then I saw her, my mother, in an apron, giving orders to 2 hired servers like she was hosting a gala. She pointed toward my pantry, telling them exactly where to find extra platters, like she lived there. Susan, 62 going on 50, looked freshly styled, hair just done, wearing a tailored dress I'd never seen before. with a corsage like she was being honored. When she finally turned and saw me, there wasn't a hint of warmth in her face. No gasp. No, "You're home early." Just a flicker of annoyance. "Emily, what are you doing here? Weren't you in Europe until Sunday?" "No, welcome home. No, we missed you." Just thinly veiled frustration that I'd shown up unannounced to my own home. "I live here, Mom," I managed, still trying to process the insanity around me. "What is all this?" "It's the family reunion," she said, like I should have known. "We've been planning it for months." "Planning it here? In my house? Without telling me?" She shrugged it off. "You're always so busy, and you've said the place is too much for just one person anyway." That was a lie. I'd never said that. In fact, I had drawn the line firmly, especially after Ethan once threw a pool party here without asking while I was working a 14-hour day. Before I could fire back, in walked Ethan, 31, still milking that boyish charm that had bailed him out of everything since we were kids, carrying a tray of half-empty wine glasses. He was even wearing a monogrammed shirt. Carter Family Reunion. Host. He barely blinked when he saw me. "Oh hey, back early? Surprise?" The word hung awkwardly in the air, completely void of meaning. "How'd you even get inside?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Mom had the spare key." Ethan shrugged. "We've got it covered. Cleaners are coming in the morning." I glanced around at the house, my house, now unrecognizable. A private home turned into a public event space, and I hadn't even been told. My heart sank. Scratches marked the hardwood from dragged furniture. Someone had shoved my grandmother's antique writing desk against the wall and dumped wine glasses on top of it, leaving rings on its 180-year-old finish. Then an older man I didn't recognize walked up, squinting at me. "You look familiar. Mabel's side or Richard's?" I stared at him. "I'm Emily Carter, and this is my house." His eyebrows lifted. "Oh, you're Henry's granddaughter. The one who got the house?" The way he said got made it sound like I'd won it in a raffle, not inherited the home where I'd spent half my childhood. "Yes, this is my house," I said, voice flat. He smiled like I was hosting a neighborhood potluck. "Beautiful place, though honestly, it should have been split among the family. A lot of folks didn't expect Henry to do that." Then he walked off. I stood there, teeth clenched, furious and speechless. As I walked through the house, the whispers followed me. "She never shows up to anything. Too busy with work? She doesn't even know half of us. What does one person need with all this space?" They didn't even lower their voices. I passed by the buffet and noticed old family photos, my photos, that had been pulled from labeled boxes I'd stored in the attic. In another room, cousins I barely remembered were flipping through Grandpa's vintage vinyls. And someone had moved my work laptop out of the office to make room for Pi. My boundaries meant nothing here. In the dining room, a neat stack of matching reunion t-shirts sat beside the guest book. Carter Family Reunion 2025 with a date, 3 weeks ago. This wasn't a last-minute get-together. It had been planned for weeks. Without telling me, I needed air, just 5 minutes to breathe. But when I stepped out onto the back deck, it was already taken over by teens I didn't know, staring at their phones and groaning about how boring this family thing was. I slipped back through the chaos, Mom smiling for photos with second cousins from Chicago, like she was queen of the reunion. Ethan playing bartender, and basking in compliments from some distant relatives. I passed people whose names I didn't know, and who didn't know mine. Nobody looked up when I grabbed my suitcase from where I'd left it by the door. Nobody called my name as I walked outside. I made it halfway down the street before my eyes blurred with tears. I pulled out my phone and booked a room at the downtown Hyatt. I wasn't going to stay and cause a scene. I needed distance. I needed time to breathe. As the Uber turned the corner, I glanced back at the house. My grandfather's house. My house. It glowed with energy, but none of it was for me. These people didn't know me. They didn't want to. and clearly they hadn't missed me at all. The betrayal stung, but what really broke me was the blatant disregard for my grandfather's wishes and for the space that had become my sanctuary. I checked into the hotel on autopilot, dropped my bag, sat on the bed. The sterile silence felt surreal after the whirlwind I'd just left behind. I held my phone for a long time. Who could I even talk to? What could I do? How was I ever supposed to feel safe in that house again? The room felt cold and characterless, but the silence was a gift. I sat there, frozen, replaying the entire night on a loop I couldn't shut off. This wasn't new. It was just the loudest version of a pattern I'd grown used to. And as the shock faded, old memories surfaced. Dismissals, minimization, moments I had once brushed off, now glaring in full color. I still remember my 8th birthday. My mom invited the whole class, but forgot I was allergic to the frosting on the cake. When I said something, she waved me off. "Don't make a scene, Emily. The other kids are having fun." Or my high school graduation. They showed up late and left before my name was even called. Ethan had a baseball game. "It's the semifinals," Mom said. "You're just walking across a stage. We'll look at the pictures later." The worst? When I got a full ride to a top university for engineering. I was over the moon. My mom's response? "Have you thought about something a little more feminine?" Meanwhile, Ethan's C-average report cards earned him a steak dinner. Every failed side hustle was just him finding his path. That night, I called Allison. Midnight or not, I needed someone who understood. She'd known my family drama for 2 decades and never sugarcoated anything. "Wait, they used your house for a reunion and didn't even tell you?" Her voice cracked with disbelief. "Oh, hell no. Emily, that's not just rude, that's insane." "Am I overreacting?" I asked, half hoping she'd say yes. I'd been trained to doubt myself. "Overreacting? If anything, you're underreacting," she shot back. "They disrespected your home, crossed every boundary, and acted like you were the problem. That is not okay." Her words hit home. Deep down, I already knew it wasn't about a party. It was about a pattern. A lifetime of being dismissed and disrespected by the 2 people who should have had my back. I'd tried. I'd bent. I'd set boundaries they stepped right over. I gave grace they never earned. And I excused things for years that no one ever asked them to justify. I didn't sleep. I just lay there, rehearsing outcomes. If I confronted them, they'd roll their eyes. Ask for an apology? I'd get a lukewarm, "sorry," to shut me up. Tell them how I felt? They'd say I was being too sensitive. By morning, I had clarity. I headed back to the house around 9 a.m., thinking most people would be gone. And they were. But what they left behind? I wasn't ready for that. The place was a disaster. Bottles and red Solo cups everywhere. Food mashed into the weave of my Persian rug. Someone had gotten sick in the powder room sink. The living room was stacked with half-folded rental chairs. The garden looked like a windstorm had rolled through. Crushed blooms, upturned planters, total chaos. And there was my mother, sitting at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee and her phone. She looked up casually. "There you are. Where'd you run off to last night? So dramatic, Emily." No apology, not even a hint of regret, just judgment for how I responded. "I stayed at a hotel," I said, keeping my tone level, since apparently my bedroom doubled as coat check. "That was Ethan's call," she said with a shrug. "We needed space. You know how these things go. Cleaners will be here by noon." "That's not the point, Mom," I said, trying not to raise my voice. "You used my house without asking, and you didn't even invite me to my own family reunion." She sighed, like I was the unreasonable one. "You're always buried in work. Would you have come anyway? And let's be real. If we asked, you'd just come up with a dozen rules and restrictions." "Yes," I said, "because this is my home, not a public venue." Right on cue, Ethan wandered out of the guest room, hair a mess, still in yesterday's clothes. "Morning," he muttered, making a beeline for the coffee. Pretty great party, huh? Everyone loved the place. Ethan, why didn't you tell me about this? I asked, flat out. He shrugged like it was nothing. We needed a big space, and you've got it. What's the big deal? We're family. The big deal, I snapped, is that this is my home, not a community center. You don't get to use it like it's yours. Technically, it's the family home, my mother chimed in. Your grandfather would have wanted everyone to enjoy it. And that was it, the spark that ignited everything. Don't you dare speak for Grandpa. He left this house to me because he knew I'd take care of it, because I actually respected what it meant. I couldn't keep talking. I needed to see the full damage. And what I found made my stomach turn. Anger turned into something deeper. In the study, Grandpa's antique mahogany desk, the same one he used to teach me about craftsmanship and honor, had a deep gouge across the surface, and a cigarette burn. I had a strict no smoking rule, and now it was ruined. That desk wasn't just wood. It's where Grandpa helped me draw my first floor plan, where he wrote my college recommendation letters, where he signed his will. My home office door, always locked, was wide open. Someone had either picked the lock or forced it. Drawers were pulled out, my files disturbed. My laptop had been moved. The first dollar I earned consulting in college had been ripped from the wall, its frame cracked. Upstairs didn't offer relief. My bedroom door, clearly marked private, was open. Closet half open, dresser drawers slightly ajar. Someone had rummaged through my personal life like it was theirs. I came back downstairs to find my mother and brother sipping coffee, laughing about Cousin Phil's karaoke performance. Like everything was perfectly normal. My office was broken into, I said coldly. Someone went through my bedroom. Grandpa's desk is damaged. Ethan waved it off. Probably just kids playing hide and seek. That desk looks like a water ring. It'll buff out. No, I snapped. It's a burn and a knife scratch. That desk is nearly 200 years old. You're always so dramatic, my mother sighed. It's just stuff, Emily. Just things. Her words echoed, just stuff. To them, none of it mattered. Not the memories, not the history. It was all just free space and things to break because we shared a bloodline. But to me, this house was everything. My sanctuary, my history. And they violated it, without a second thought. I grabbed my phone. Allison, can you come over? I really need you. While I waited, I walked room to room, snapping photos of everything, every scratch, every stain, every careless footprint. When she arrived, she stopped in the entryway, horrified. Oh my God, Emily, this is worse than I pictured. She pulled me into a hug. What are you going to do? I looked around at what used to be my safe place, now covered in damage and disregard. I don't know yet, I whispered. But I do know I'm done pretending this is normal. After Allison left, I made one more call. Scott Reynolds, local agent who had been asking for months if I'd consider selling. The Victorian-style house sat on a corner lot everyone in town wanted. Ever since Grandpa passed, real estate agents had been circling like vultures. I picked up my phone and dialed. Hey Scott, it's Emily Carter. That offer you mentioned last month, still available? My mom and Ethan were still in the kitchen, chatting about airport pickups. But when they heard me talking about selling the house, their chatter stopped cold. For once, they were actually listening. Scott showed up within the hour. He usually had that polished, always selling energy, but the look on his face changed the moment he saw the mess. This isn't quite how the house looked last time we met, he said delicately, glancing at a wine stain creeping down the wallpaper. Family gathering, I said tersely. Let's talk in the garden. We sat on the wrought iron patio set Grandpa had refurbished himself. It was the only corner that still felt like my home. Scott wasted no time. He flipped open his folder and dove right in. Thank God, no small talk. That cash buyer I told you about is still interested. Victor Yang, tech guy, just moved here from the Bay Area. He's been hunting for a place exactly like this. What's his timeline? I asked. He's ready to move. Living in a short-term rental, wants to settle as soon as possible. He's fine with as-is condition. No contingencies. I'm not fixing a thing, I said flatly. Scott nodded. At this price and location, he's buying the bones and the history. Renovation is already in his plan. I inhaled slowly. So, what's he offering? 2.1 million, all cash. A bit under market for the quick close, but no inspection, no bank holdups. I nodded, surprisingly calm. Let's move forward. Scott blinked, trying to play it cool. Are you sure? It's a big move. This home's been in your family a long time. I know its history, I replied. That's exactly why I'm ready to let it go. I glanced toward the kitchen window. My mother and brother were whispering again, no doubt trying to figure out what Scott and I were planning. How fast can we get this rolling? I asked. I can get the prelims to you this afternoon. Full contract by tonight. If Victor's team is fast, we can close within the week. Perfect. And I'll need a solid real estate attorney, someone fast but meticulous. Scott made a quick call, and by 2 p.m., Diane Matthews showed up, my go-to attorney for anything serious. She handled my estate plans last year. Smart, no drama, my kind of person. While Scott set up at what was left of my study, Diane and I sat in the garden to talk. Emily, are you sure about this? She asked. Quick sales usually favor the buyer. I know, I told her. But things have changed, and I need this chapter to end. Fast. The offer wasn't exactly top dollar, but for a cash deal with 0 delays, it was more than fair, and honestly, worth the peace of mind. Diane looked at me carefully. This doesn't feel like you, Emily. You're usually the spreadsheet, compare options, sleep on it type. I nodded. Sometimes clarity hits you like a brick. This place, it stopped feeling like a home. Now it just feels like a weight I'm done carrying. By late afternoon, I had signed the preliminary documents. Scott left with marching orders to present it to Victor. The decision was real now, on paper. Mom and Ethan had been circling like sharks, watching, whispering, but staying quiet. That silence shattered the second Scott closed the front door. What was that about? My mom snapped, stepping into the garden where Diane and I were reviewing the paperwork. Business, I said, cool as I could. What kind of business brings a realtor to our family home? She asked, putting weight on family, like I'd invited strangers to rob a church. This is Diane, my lawyer. That got her attention, instantly. I'm selling the house, I said flatly. The buyer's ready to close fast. I need your stuff out by tomorrow evening. Silence. Then, boom. You can't be serious, she blurted. This is insane, even for you. Ethan jumped in. Come on, Emily, it was just a party. We apologized. You haven't apologized, I said. But it doesn't even matter anymore. This isn't about apologies. It's about boundaries. Broken ones. Some lines, once crossed, you don't get to step back over like nothing happened. So you're punishing us? Selling our family home? Mom's voice cracked with righteous anger. This isn't punishment. It's me choosing peace, choosing my future over constantly fixing your messes. Ethan's tone changed. We won't let you do this. Grandpa would have never wanted you to sell. He trusted me. That's why he left the house to me, not to you, not to Mom, not to the family. Of course, Mom pivoted, voice soft, eyes fake sad. Emily, sweetie, you're just emotional. I get that we weren't thinking, but selling this house, you'll regret that forever. Let's just all take a breath. We don't have to do this today. Same old script. Minimize, deflect, guilt trip. Then act like they were compromising. Not this time. I'm done. It's happening. I signed. Victor's sending his final contract tonight. There's no undoing it. Diane chimed in. Perfect timing. Mrs. Carter, the transaction is already underway. Your daughter is well within her legal rights. I recommend using your time to plan your relocation. Boom. Mom turned to me, her eyes brimming with tears. Where are we even supposed to go on such short notice? It was almost funny. Almost. The guilt game, the performance. It was textbook. Your apartment, I reminded her. You know, the one I've been paying part of the rent on since Grandpa died. Ethan got close, his voice lowering. I could contest the will, say Grandpa wasn't in his right mind. Diane beat me to it. That deadline passed 18 months ago, and I personally assessed your grandfather's legal capacity. You'd be wasting your time and money. That night, I went room by room, gathering the things that actually mattered. Grandpa's first edition engineering books, a box of letters he wrote me in college, old photos from the years that still felt warm. The rest? Let them have it. I was done clinging to a place that had stopped being home. I gently wrapped my grandfather's old pocket watch and the fountain pen he used to sign his will, two small things that carried a lifetime of weight. The desk, though, it had to stay. It was too damaged to move and honestly too heartbreaking to look at anymore. Maybe Victor Yang would have it restored, or maybe he'd replace it entirely. Either way, that chapter was closing. I was starting to understand. It's not the object that holds the memory. It's you. The memory travels with you, even when the object stays behind. My mom tried everything: guilt, rage, last-minute promises that things would be different. Ethan flip-flopped between empty threats and desperate bargains. But I didn't budge. Oddly enough, I felt peaceful, like I was finally doing what needed to be done. By midnight, everything I needed was in my car. I'd booked a long-stay hotel and wasn't looking back. I took one last slow walk through the house. Not to say goodbye, but to let it go. Every corner whispered something from the past. But the real memories? They were already packed, right there with me. Mom was waiting in the foyer, locked and loaded with her final line. If you do this, Emily, you're tearing this family apart. I turned back, gave a tired smile, and said, Mom, you can't break something that was never whole to begin with. That night, in a basic hotel room with scratchy sheets, I slept better than I had in months. The next morning, under a crystal blue sky, I pulled up to the house. Victor and his assistant were already there, right on time. Scott introduced us. Victor was younger than I'd imagined, early 40s maybe, but carried this calm, grounded energy. He'd built his wealth in green tech and wasn't one to beat around the bush. I appreciate you moving quickly, he said. I know this place has deep family roots. Just Emily, I replied. And yeah, it has history, but it's ready for its next chapter. We toured the house. I didn't bother hiding the mess. No point sugarcoating the truth. Victor didn't even blink. No fuss. No trying to shave the price. The bones are incredible, he said, running his fingers along the old crown molding. They don't build homes like this anymore. In the study, he paused by the desk. What a shame, he murmured. American Empire era? Yeah, 1830. My grandfather treasured that desk. I've got a furniture restoration guy, he offered. If you're not taking it, I'd like to restore it properly. That little gesture, it meant more to me than he could possibly realize. After the walkthrough, we met in the dining room. Diane had everything laid out for closing. It was surprisingly straightforward, for a sale that was anything but simple in my heart. Signature after signature, page after page. Scott couldn't stop grinning, already counting his commission, no doubt. As we were reviewing the final documents, the front door burst open. My brother Ethan stormed in, followed by my mother. Stop! This is a mistake, he yelled. Diane stepped in. Mr. Carter, unless you're part of the transaction, you'll need to leave. My mom didn't care. She pushed past Diane, turned to Victor, and launched into a speech about family, legacy, and how I was making an emotional mistake. Victor looked awkward but didn't budge. Ethan turned to me. Emily, we'll change. I swear. No more surprises. You set the rules. We'll follow them. For a second, I wanted to believe him, but I knew better. They only showed up those words when something was being taken away from them. It's too late, Ethan, I said softly. The decision is already made. And then came the guilt grenade. If you do this, you're destroying your grandfather's legacy. I looked her in the eye. His legacy isn't brick and wood. It's the values he passed to me. Integrity, self-respect. He left this house to me because he trusted my judgment. And I'm finally using it. By throwing away your family? She shot back, tears in her eyes. I'm choosing to stop letting family mean exploitation. I've been a daughter, a sister, a lifeline, and you treated me like an ATM with feelings. That ends now. Ethan stepped closer, trying one last scare tactic. You do this. Don't expect us to be there when you realize what a mistake you've made. I looked at him, the brother I'd bailed out, supported, forgiven, and felt nothing but release. That's a risk I'm willing to take. Diane, professional to the end, jumped in to get us back on track. And I did it. I signed. That pen stroke ended 3 generations of history and decades of pain. Victor passed me a check and shook my hand. The house was his now, just like that. No dramatic thunder, no slow-motion music, just papers rustling and the soft click of briefcases. Before he left, Victor looked at me. I'll honor this home story. I promise. I handed him the keys and added, check behind the 3rd bookshelf in the library. My grandfather left some documents about the house. You might find them meaningful. You're welcome to visit, he offered kindly. That's kind, I said. But I don't think I will. Some chapters, they need to stay closed. My mother and brother stood frozen, watching as I packed the last of my belongings. No hugs, no parting words. Just the weight of final decisions and the silence that followed. With every step down the path, I felt something heavy lift. The garden used to feel like peace. Now it just echoed disregard. The walls once filled with my grandfather's wisdom now held the noise of people who disrespected both him and me. I loaded the final box, looked back. Mom watched from the doorway, unreadable. Ethan didn't bother to show. I gave one small wave, got in, and drove off. The check was in my purse, freedom in my rear view. The first week was a blur. I left the hotel for a short-term apartment, giving myself breathing room. I sorted the finances, prepped for taxes, and slowly adjusted to this new chapter. The silence from them wasn't surprising, but it still hit. No calls, no messages, nothing. A part of me welcomed the quiet, but another part missed the version of family I never really had. On day 9, the silence cracked. My inbox exploded with messages from relatives I barely knew. Word had spread. I'd thrown a tantrum and sold the house out of spite. Their version, of course. I ignored most of them, but Melissa's message felt genuine, so I replied. I'm okay, I told her. There's more to the story than you've been told, but I'm at peace with it. She replied, I had a feeling. Your mom and Ethan never saw things clearly. That meant more than she knew. I buried myself in work. Helvetica's rollout kept me busy and focused. Over lunch, Allison said I seemed lighter. She wasn't wrong. I do feel lighter, I told her. That house wasn't just history, it was baggage. Any word from them? Allison asked. Not directly, I said. Heard they had to move back into Mom's old apartment. They just assumed they could stay forever. Allison shook her head. Unbelievable. They expected me to keep putting up with it like always. 2 weeks later, Victor emailed me pictures of the desk being restored. The craftsman says it's salvageable, he wrote. Would you like it when it's done? It seems special to you. His kindness caught me off guard. I said no. The desk belonged with the house, but the gesture meant more than I expected. That evening, while cooking, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw my mother. She looked unlike herself. hair undone, clothes wrinkled, eyes red. She'd been crying. I didn't want to open it. I wanted to protect my peace. But something, maybe Grandpa's voice, nudged me, so I opened it. "Mom?" I said flatly, not inviting her in, not shutting her out. "Emily?" she whispered. "Can I come in?" "Just to talk." I hesitated, then stepped aside. She walked in like she thought I might throw her out. The apartment was modest, basic fixtures, 2 bedrooms, nothing fancy, but it was mine, entirely mine. "It's nice," she said, glancing around. "Cozy." "What do you want, Mom?" I asked. I wasn't in the mood. She sat down slowly, looked all of her 62 years. "We've been evicted," she said. "The landlord found out Ethan was living there. The lease didn't allow it. Of course, this wasn't a visit to make peace. She needed help. Money." "Sorry to hear that," I said, keeping my voice flat. "Where are you staying?" "A motel, for now. Ethan's job hunting, but, you know, I didn't. His jobs never lasted. Big ideas, quick exits." "What about your savings?" I asked, already knowing. "Spent on the reunion," she mumbled. "And Ethan's coffee shop idea. The lease fell through." The silence was heavy. She'd used up everything. On a party I wasn't welcome at, and another doomed plan of Ethan's. "How much?" I asked, cutting through it. Her eyes lit up. "Just first month and deposit. $3, maybe $4,000. I'll pay you back." Same old pattern. Her crisis. My wallet. Promises I knew better than to believe. For a second, I almost said yes. It would have been easier. But Grandpa's voice echoed. "Helping isn't enabling." "I can't give you money, Mom." Her face crumpled. "Emily, we're going to be homeless. After everything I've done for you, I'm not refusing to help," I cut in. "I'm refusing to give you money. There's a difference." She frowned. "What difference?" "I won't enable what led us here, but I'll help. Housing leads, job counseling for Ethan, even financial planning. We don't need counseling. We need a place to live." "You need both," I said. "If you're open to real help, help that changes things, I'm here. But no blank checks, no enabling the next disaster." She stood, eyes flashing. "So this is revenge, making us beg while you sit on millions." "It's not revenge. It's boundaries. And I should have drawn them years ago." "Boundaries," she scoffed. "Is that what your therapist calls abandoning your family?" I took a breath. "Yes, I am. Because healthy people get help. That's what I'm offering you. Real help, not a Band-Aid." She grabbed her purse. "Keep your help and your judgment. We'll manage, like we always have." The irony, saying that while asking for help, wasn't lost on either of us. As she reached the door, I said softly, "The offer stands. When you're ready for real change, call me." She paused, shoulders tense. For a second, I thought she'd turn back. She didn't. She left in silence. I sat alone. Dinner cold on the stove. The moment had hurt, but it brought clarity. For once, I offered help, with terms. Real terms. Not just rescue, but growth. Not what she wanted, but maybe what she needed. A text from Allison. "You okay?" I thought about it. Getting there. One day at a time. And strangely, it was true. 6 months flew. Spring became fall. I moved to a quiet townhouse with a small garden. I planted tulips for Grandpa. Work thrived. Helvetica led to a promotion and global responsibilities. But the biggest changes were inside. Therapy helped me see the patterns I'd accepted and how to respond better. I learned boundaries aren't selfish. They're survival. Helping others doesn't mean losing yourself. After that day, Mom and I didn't speak for 3 months. Melissa told me they'd moved to a small 2-bedroom in a rougher part of town. Ethan got a job at a hardware store. Not his dream, but steady work for once. When my mother finally called, her voice held less pride, more hesitation. "Emily, it's me. Can we meet just to talk?" We met at a quiet coffee shop halfway between us. I came early, watching through the window as she approached. She looked older, softer, but held a quiet dignity I hadn't seen in her before. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, cupping her drink for warmth. "I've been thinking a lot." "About what?" I asked. "Everything. The house, the reunion, how I treated you. I wasn't fair. Not just about the party. For years, I favored Ethan, resented your success, took you for granted." I was stunned. She had never admitted fault, let alone a lifetime of it. "What changed?" I asked. "Reality," she said softly. "When you lose everything, you see clearer. And I had a good teacher." "What teacher?" "Your grandfather. After the house sold, I was furious. I went to his grave, vented about you." She shook her head, and I remembered something he always said. "Susan, life owes you nothing. Build with your own hands." Her eyes shimmered. "I stopped building a long time ago. I just expected things. From your dad, my parents, from you. That's not the example I should have set." It wasn't easy. Old tensions flared, but honesty, real honesty, finally surfaced after decades of silence. As we stood, she said quietly, "I can't change the past. But maybe a better future if you're willing." I didn't make promises. "I'm open to trying, Mom, one step at a time." We began with monthly dinners, just us. Later, Ethan joined, once he showed signs of change. That first holiday meal, at a restaurant, neutral ground, free from old ghosts. My bond with Ethan grew slower. His resentment lingered. Entitlement ran deep. But necessity sparked change. His job at the hardware store led to a passion for fixing things. By spring, he earned a contractor's license, started a handyman business. "I like fixing things," he said once, surprisingly honest. "Feels good to make something broken work again." I didn't point out the metaphor. He'd get there eventually. Not all ties were repaired. Some relatives kept calling me the selfish villain who ruined the family legacy. I made peace with it. You can't control how people see your choices, only the truth behind them. Instead, I poured my energy into building a chosen family, friends who respected my space, coworkers who valued my voice, neighbors who felt like home. Allison stayed by my side, and I welcomed people who brought light into my life. A year passed. Then an email from Victor Young arrived, photos of the finished restoration. He'd honored the home's character while updating its bones. My grandfather's desk sat restored, proudly in the study. The garden was replanted with care, even the tulip bed spelled "onward" when seen from above. "Your grandfather's legacy lives on," Victor wrote, "changed but respected." His words echoed my own truth. My bond with Grandpa wasn't tied to bricks or beams. It lived in the values he gave me: integrity, self-worth, the courage to build something lasting. The house had been a symbol, meaningful, but still just a vessel. The real legacy? The strength to make hard choices, to set boundaries, to know when letting go is the bravest thing. On the 1-year mark, I invited Mom and Ethan to dinner, their first time at my townhouse. It was awkward at times. Old habits don't vanish overnight. But there was laughter, curiosity, and the start of something healthier. As they left, Mom paused at the door. "You know, I think your grandfather would be proud of you." "For selling his house?" I asked, surprised. "For having the guts to make hard choices. Henry never took the easy road either." Her words filled a quiet space inside me I hadn't known still needed healing. That night, I sat in my garden among blooming tulips, thinking back on the past year. I lost a house, but gained clarity. I drew boundaries and made space for real connection. I honored Grandpa not by preserving a home, but by living the way he taught me. My path wasn't perfectly clear, but it was finally free of the weight of guilt and old pain. I still think about that moment, standing in the ruins of my past, choosing to walk away instead of relive the same pain. It wasn't easy, but it was right. Sometimes courage means letting go, even of things wrapped in tradition and sentiment. Remember, family matters, but so do you. Thanks for hearing my story. I hope you find the courage to write your own, however it begins.